Welcome to the Industrial Talk Podcast with Scott McKenzie. Scott is a passionate industry professional dedicated to transferring cutting-edge, industry-focused innovations and trends while highlighting the men and women who keep the world moving. So put on your hard hat, grab your work boots, and let's go.
All right, welcome once again. Thank you very much for joining Industrial Talk, a platform that is dedicated to industry heroes such as yourself. You're bold, you're brave, you dare greatly, you're innovating, you're solving problems, you're changing lives, and you're changing the world. That's why this platform celebrates you each and every day. All right, this is a Deloitte series. We are talking about asset management. We're talking about maintenance. We're talking about strategies around that on this particular episode. And in the hot seat, Max Efimov. And you got to go out to his stat card out there. It is impressive. That's last name is spelled E-F-I-M-O-V. I'm telling you, he's engaged. If you're touched by this conversation and the solutions that are available, and once again, this is a series, so we're going to continue to build on it. You got to reach out to Max. Let's get cracking. So I'm reading a book. Yeah, books are my advisory board, for a lack of a better term. I pick them up, I read probably a chapter or two, I put it down, I try to deploy whatever recommendations are in those chapters or whatever wisdom have been imparted. I try to do that. And then I pick up another book, and so on. You get the picture. I'm always reading about it because that's my advisory board for Industrial Talk Media. Now, with that said, I'm reading this book, and I'm always fascinated by innovation. I'm always fascinated by how fast it is going. And a good friend of mine, Lucian, gave me this particular book. He's with IIoT World, and he gave me this book, and it's called The Future is Faster Than You Think, and it's a fantastic read. I just kudos to the authors, which is I want to say Diamandis and Coulter. You can definitely get it out on Amazon, no doubt about that. However, very good read. And then you realize what we take for granted and all this innovation that is taking place, it's happening right before, and we don't realize it, and we just sort of experience it, which is great. But it's just traveling really fast, and it's exciting. If you're in the industry, if you're into that, I highly recommend that book. It also brings me to the point where I don't think we can educate fast enough. I don't know how to put in my head information that is needed for, keep moving the ball forward or pushing the ball forward. And so it's an interesting challenge. How do we educate faster? When there was a section on AI, machine learning, all of that, and that technology, these computers are able to learn quick. How do we as people learn quick? I don't know. I know all I can do is just keep reading. And I recommend that you do because, doggone it, the world is depending on you industry professionals. Now, I also went to a couple of conferences, and I want to just quickly summarize, one, what the points were. And you just write them down. It's not a big deal, but there were really some key points within these two conferences. The first thing is that, one, there was a concern that innovation and what's happening in the world today, innovation is not going to be truly available to the small to mid-sized businesses. And so, large companies, yes, no problem, we're going to deploy it, but you see the advantage associated with that. Make mistakes, whatever. What do we do to allow this innovation, to allow this insight permeate into the small to mid-sized business? Think about that. Come up with a solution there. Workforce. Boy, oh boy. Workforce. I can't find people. Do I reskill? Do I upskill? What do I do? A big challenge, a big question mark. People are trying. So I part that on you. Education. Again, we were talking about reskilling and upskilling. We've got, and because of the speed at which Innovation is taking place. Big, big topic. And then are we in the world of innovation? Are we in the world of technology in providing solutions? Are we actually listening to the customer? What do they need? What problems are they trying to solve? I think sometimes in the world of innovation, in the world of technology, we get ahead of our skis, and we think that manufacturing or industry needs certain things, but really when they just got a problem that they need to solve, and are we just sort of overlooking it? Are we having those conversations that are important to our customers? A big one, trust. Trust. I don't know who to trust. With all of this stuff that's coming my way, this tsunami of information, innovation, insights, all good. Don't get me wrong. But who do I trust? It's sort of a lexicon, but who do I trust? As well as it's a risk on my part. If I decide that I go down with, one person or one company or whatever it might be, what risk am I starting to see? So risk, trust. Keep that in mind. Real conversations with real collaboration with your customer. They have problems. Are we collaborating and solving their problems? Are we having great conversations that help them succeed? Because the reality is they have to. We've got to figure it out so that they succeed. They are that important. Where do I start? What do I do? How do I start? Where do I start? Don't have a question. Supply chain. Big, big topic. Big topic. Pain point. We all know that. And then finally, the topic that everybody needs to talk about, but nobody wants to talk about, and that's cybersecurity. With all of this connectivity, with all this digital transformation, with this journey, a fundamental component is cybersecurity, but nobody apparently wants to talk about it. And when they do talk about it, it's really difficult to understand. So how do we simplify, remove that friction? It's a people issue. The technology, the innovation, and the big thinkers out there, such as Deloitte and others, they're dealing with it. But are we having those conversations with those companies that are small to mid-size, that are dealing with challenges and problems? I throw that out. Those were the points that I took away from SMRP and the Manufacturing and Technology show last month. All right, let's get on. So this is a series, and of course, once again, it's going to be asset management, it's going to be reliability, it's going to be maintenance-centric. And this is a model that Max and Team Deloitte have put together called Operations 360. You'll hear the term pinwheel, but the way it's laid out is very logical, very straightforward, plug and play to a certain extent, but the reality is you need it. You need the solutions. You need the insights. It's vitally important to your business, the resiliency of your business. But fear not, you're going to say, Scott, I can't, I sort of see it, but go out to industrialtalk.com. We're going to have a download of the document and the pinwheel and some of the parameters associated with that. All right, let's get on with the interview. Here's Max. Max, welcome to Industrial Talk. How are you doing today?
Doing great. Thanks, Scott, for having me.
Yeah, it's listeners, we're going to be talking a little bit about asset management. We're going to be talking about maintenance. We're going to be talking about the strategies associated with that. And Max is definitely, he brings the street cred. He's a leader in that field big time. Before we get going, Max, give us a little 411 on who you are.
Thanks, Scott. So my name is Max Efimov. Today I'm hailing from South Dakota.
Yeah.
Home of the Mount Rushmore and the Devil's Peak nearby. So
I got to tell you, that's on my. I've never been up there. Should I go up there?
Absolutely.
Yes.
You know, it is an absolutely place to visit.
Now,
especially if you're a pheasant hunter. South Dakota
really?
is to be. Yes, it's the place to be.
I didn't know that. I didn't. All I remember is Mount Rushmore, and I don't know anything else about it, but it's always a beautiful picture, most definitely. All right, let's get into the conversation, the topic. Listeners, we're going to be talking about this model. This model is called Operations 360. Now, Max is going to take us through sort of the high level. Then we're going to dive deep in latter podcasts. But right now, we're going to just define about what this Operations 360 looks like. I've got the diagram. I like the way it's laid out. I can follow it. And therefore, listener, you could definitely follow it. And we're going to have it at Industrial Talk so that you can download it as well. Let's start high right now. Why is this diagram so unique in a sense?
So I would actually say it is the combination of a lot of talent and a lot of thought as a Deloitte we put together. So what started with is we looked at the existing frameworks. And as a management consultant, we like to reuse a lot of stuff. But also we like to put a unique spin on the stuff we have. And so when we start looking in the asset life cycle as the Deloitte, global Deloitte, and we look at it around what does the competitors do, what does the market does, what are the current challenges and what are people struggling with? And it's really what become very interesting is, the continuous improvement and operational excellence frameworks are nothing new. They've been existing. What we found, though, very few of them, actually almost none of them, taken into account Industry 4.0.
Yeah.
They haven't been renewed in a long time. So they also have they kind of started as in the late 80s, early 90s, and an organization established them, put them together, but then it's kind of become static in place. The two most common framework you probably heard in the market space, it's ISO 5501. That's one that's common for reliability and maintenance of the team. But then you also probably heard that Lean Six Sigma. Everybody heard about the Lean Six. It's basically continuous process improvement, customer focus, and basically removing the waste out of that supply chain and improving the processes. So that's the two common ones. But then when you're looking around, all of them have been implemented in the organization in some form or fashion. They're a very good framework. However, they do provide a robust set of methodologies, but none of them are really comprehensive enough to start addressing new emerging challenges. So if you think about it, ISO 55001, it's actually been static since 2014. So if you think about it, kind of put this in the context of what does it really mean for the industry. In 2014, autonomous cars or drones was almost like a Terminator 2.0 science fiction. Nowadays, with Tesla, you're talking 6 years down the line, 7 years down the line, and we're talking what level of automation we're actually introducing into the operation, and what level of automation we want. Self-driving cars, autonomous delivery, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Six Sigma, kind of the same way. Again, very solid, but very few start thinking about how do you start applying those frameworks for things like a gig economy. How do I actually address the energy transition and decarbonization? How I start looking at the IT/OT conversion and cybersecurity, and more importantly, how do I actually apply those techniques and the frameworks to future of a modern workforce? Think about it. The people who in the current workforce are about to enter in more workforce, you probably heard the term digital native. A good example in my personal life, my son, who's 12, probably knows more tips and tricks and constantly teaching my wife and I how to use iPad. So
it's pretty cool.
It's just a different way the people and the current generation basically interact with technology, expects of technology, and thinks about technology, as well as the way they work.
Yeah, and I agree with you 100%. And especially the way Industry 4.0, the innovation associated with the people who are like Deloitte are just constantly pushing that digital economy. There's a velocity there, and if you're stuck, it's not negative. Don't come texting me and saying that's negative. But if you're working from the ISO 55000 or the Six Sigma, all fine, all great standards. But if you're working from that, there is a lot of other things that are taking place that you might be missing, and you just don't see it. You don't know.
You're absolutely right. And that's why as a Deloitte, that's why we kind of start thinking about these future challenges. It's sort of like, how do we address these unknowns? But at the same time, we want to make sure that we're addressing it with the pace, certainty, and techniques that people can, it's not some futuristic stuff that people cannot understand, or they feel like it's too far out there. Right, so it's basically how do you introduce and transition your organization with pace, velocity, and certainty that you expect to have. And so also, how do we introduce the standard, also not to rework everything what the people already have, because again, ISO 55001 or Lean Six Sigma, perfectly great philosophies, perfectly great frameworks. So how do you leverage all that knowledge that currently have and basically build upon it? So that's why we've come up with Operation 360. It's a proprietary framework for Deloitte. It's something we've developed. And we developed this as what we believe it's a help to simplify and drive operational excellence and continuous improvement in meaningful and measurable way, taking the emerging challenges as well as the current challenges, and introduce innovation in a very pragmatic way. I think that is what's important to us. It's basically, how do we introduce the changes in the organization, in a way where it becomes pragmatic, it becomes value added, but it also sticks within the organization, because one of the biggest challenges, it's like, how do you introduce change without actually rejecting the change?
And what we're talking about here is the necessity to change. Now, let me put so I'm a manufacturer. I'm into existing standards. I've invested a lot of time, energy, and effort. And I hear what you're saying. What I do like about the approach, this Operation 360, is that it adds, it augments, it sort of bolts on to my existing standards. And therefore, I'm able to change in a way, again, to use your words, pragmatic, value-added, and the recognition that Industry 4.0, if you're not in it, if you're not in this digital transformation, whatever it looks like, then you're missing out. So let's start talking about the pinwheel. Give us a little overview of what that is and go forward.
So when we look at the what you refer to pinwheel is basically the heart of Operation 360 framework. And the way we look at the pinwheel, it's really the combination of 12 essential elements that any industry any asset-intensive business does today. So it's basically the combination of the best of today with the digitally enabled future of tomorrow. And really what it says, it's if you think about the outer rim, it's the 12 elements of the Operation 360. And so if you look at it, it's the combination of operation and environmental safety, security and information, risk management, so security, emergency response management, incident investigation, facility and design construction, reliability strategy, integration of the third-party services, tying all this with business performance management and profitability, because again, let's face it, most of the business doing this for in order to betterment of all of the stakeholders. It's not just the monetary income, but it's also positive impact on the environment. So that's why I would say it's a performance management rather than just a pure, but most commercial businesses also looking at that in terms of profitability. Then it's also make sure that all of the community and stakeholders are engaged and properly communicated, as well as recognizing there's a special place for regulatory and compliance assurance. And lastly, what we call it knowledge management. And it's basically how do you retain that institutional knowledge that we see time and time again every time we go through this generational change in a workforce. It's effectively walking away, and then
it is.
Organizations do struggle with that. So that's really the pinwheel, in a sense. All right.
So what I do like when I look at that, again, when we start talking about existing standards, we've got, of course, the continuous improvement. We've got operational excellence, and that is all wrapped into this particular, because you cannot deploy if you don't have a desire to have continuous improvement, operational excellence, and you continue to sort of work it. The other thing that I like seeing is that you have these thirds, and the first four elements of the pinwheel talk about management, commitment, people, and relationships. I like it. I like how it lines up. The second four, because it's 12, the second four, governance, roles, and responsibilities. And then finally, systems and process, the remaining four. I like how that's chunked together. Now, if I'm an organization, Max, and let's say I've got my governance, roles, and responsibility pretty much nailed down because we just like that. Does it have to be all or nothing, or can I just sort of pick another sort of third of the wheel and then be able to focus in and then work that route? Can I do that?
Absolutely. And that's why we purposely designed this to be circular. All right, because again, as I go back, our premise was when we look at all of the existing standards in the world, ISO, Lean Six Sigma, etc. We looked at our own Deloitte generated insights from various projects. We looked at like, how can we introduce this in a non-disruptive way? So it's effectively been designed to introduce organically into organization and grow through the organization. So for instance, if you already have an absolutely top quartile reliability strategy or facility in the design and construction, and then you say, well, you know what, I have that, but how do I actually, my next pain point is basically, how do I retain the knowledge? Absolutely, there is a way, since that, that's how the framework design. So each, it can be combined. Ultimately, all these 12 elements can be combined, but each can be handled separately. So in a way, I would say by employing Operation 360 framework, there's a 6 principal advantages to the organization that we see that's yielding. First, it's provide a systematic framework to enable Industry 4.0 and data-driven intelligent enterprise. So it does linking people, assets, information technology, risk and cybersecurity, as well as a continuous improvement across the entire life cycle of an enterprise. And so it's not just it's only for the operations people, or it's only for the CEO of the world's, or it's only for the cybersecurity. It's for the entire organization holistically. The second advantage is because Operation 360 is a digitally native. We believe that it helps organization to focus and maximize the business transformation benefits. So again, it's kind of as you talked about it, I can combine those elements. However, I can identify if I'm looking at my overall operation and what instead of just digitize everything for the sake of digitizing everything, I can take a look and says, what is my competitive advantage? It's allowed me to dissect my business across those elements. It's allowed me to focus my efforts and then move on onto something else, because you can always continuously improve, today, tomorrow, and so forth, but it allows you to provide a meaningful, and therefore, that is the third reason. By focusing on the specific elements. We also believe it's allow you to the organization to focus on IT and OT conversions, right? So it's information technology and operational technology conversions. It's incorporating in the profitability and a performance dimension, right? So it's the investments that generate value, not the investments for the investment's sake. And operation provided predictable outcome and strategies across the business function and as well as the technology enablers. The fourth advantage, we believe, that for organizations, once they start adopting Operation 360, it will also help the organization to reduce implementation costs as well as adoption, because again, it is not something revolutionary. As I said earlier, we've designed this to actually fit in with an existing organization, and it taking the best of what has today. It's like if you think about it in ISO, it's not just a 55001, but it's taking a combination of ISO standards like a 14224. It takes a 55001, 31000 for the risk management, 18101 around the interoperability, as well as because it's also taken account the stakeholders and the compliance, etc. Hey, Scott, did I lose you?
Yeah, I'm here.
Okay.
I'm sorry. We get a little digitized. It's a part of technology. So we're still on number 4. We've talked about how it can sort of reduce the implementation cost, which is pretty doggone cool, because that's a big element, my friend. Big element. Yeah.
So it's reducing the implementation cost and adoption time by operationalizing the best of ISO standards. And it's like things like a 14224, 50,000, 31,000 on the risk, 18101 on the interoperability. And it's also allowing the organization align those standards and align these elements with the organization core mission and guiding principles, right? Because the pinwheel itself also take into account the fact that this is not just the ISO standards, but there's a wider group of stakeholders and communities, as well as the regulatory bodies you have to incorporate. So again, it's how do you introduce those changes in a meaningful way that is actually value added. So the fifth one, it's recognizing that the technology maturity rate pace is actually enabler. It's enabling effective management and a development of competencies and skills, because again, it's not just the IT skills, but it's how do you introduce and actually build these digital natives across the both technical disciplines, engineering disciplines, as well as IT work. So it's how you start incorporating the future of the workforce, right? It's basically how do you build out the competencies. And lastly, it's enabled the data-driven decision. And also because it's a very systematic, it's allow you to understanding your decision, not just in the context of a pure dollars and cents, but it gives you this holistic way to look. It's like, how's the decision, those data-driven decision impacting the safety, operational priority, as well as the total cost and the stakeholders across the entire asset and organizational lifecycle. So I think that is the 6 key differentiators that we see where Operation 360 plays out well. And we truly believe this is actually, if the organization want to expand their framework and want to move into the Industry 4.0, it's actually something we would recommend to look at it.
Yeah, and this is how I look at it there, Max. The reality is that it's being a simple guy wanting simple solutions. I see that the pinwheel, per the values, the 6 points that you pointed out. What's nice about it is that I can navigate, meaning I can go around and you touch on every element that I have to consider. It's not that I'm going, okay, I just use one side and then I got to go find something. It's all right there. And it's easily navigable. That's a word? It is. I'm going to make it a word. and that's what I like. And it's not spread out all over the place. Now, listeners, I'm not going to sugarcoat it. The elements it's like the iceberg. There's a lot of depth to it, but at least you can say risk management. I see it right there. We need to and dive deeper, but that's where Deloitte and Max can help facilitate those conversations as well. So I like it.
Well, and that's it's exactly the reason, right? So it's make it easy for people to wrap their heads around what is the enterprise does, look at this holistically, and recognize that each decision you make does have a downstream impact or the side impact across, and it's in a ripple effect across the organization. So yeah, we believe the simplicity is the key, right?
Oh, it's huge. It's huge with the chirping that goes on in the industry, and like it sometimes it's so foggy. It's hard. I don't know where to go. I don't know what steps to take. I hear it. I recognize it. I need to have it, but I don't know where to go. Here's a nice diagram that says, here, right here, give this a shot. And then be able to, I would imagine, correct me if I'm wrong, Max, I can hear the other viewpoints and be able to sort of dovetail them into this particular pinwheel to give some context associated with it. Is that correct?
Yeah, absolutely. As a matter of fact, what we're hoping to do by people looking at this operational framework, Operation 360 framework, it's definitely a Deloitte design, but we're also hoping that by opening up a little bit, we can create the ecosystem around.
Yeah.
So it's not just, everything is all about the Deloitte, but because it's, we hope, our hope it's an open framework that people can actually insert their own solutions.
Yeah.
And have their own little flavor of Operations 360, because our point of view, there is no one size fits all. There has to be a standardization, but even the standardization have to be meaningful to the organization that want to standardize.
Yeah, and that is nice, because another pushback that I hear and others hear is that you're trying to shoehorn me into this particular approach, but that's just not, whatever it might be. It's not our culture. It's not how we work. Is whatever the pushback might be. So again, I love the flexibility to it. I like that, and you're absolutely right. And especially today, gosh, we need to have that. We need to have that ability to collaborate and create solutions that are meaningful to the organization. We're going to have to wrap it up on that one. So. Yep. Max, how do people get a hold of you?
So very simple. Obviously, my information will be provided.
Yep.
Simple way, it's you can find me through the Deloitte. Obviously, folks can reach out to me, and I'll provide my contact information at my Deloitte email account. They can reach me on the LinkedIn. Also on the Deloitte website, we have an asset ecosystem page. I'm one of the leaders for enterprise asset management capability within the asset ecosystem, and they always can call me. And if not, if everything fails, they can get to me through Scott.
Yeah, that's exactly right. So don't come to me and say I can't get a hold of Max, because there are too many options out there. He is definitely easy to get a hold of, doing a lot of great work out there. Now, this is a series. Just FYI, I want to make sure that I reiterate, it's a series. This is the beginning of the series. This is asset management. This is maintenance. It is everything's associated with it and how we plan to approach this particular pinwheel and beyond. So bear with us as we continue to build this information deck, and we're going to continue to hammer and continue to provide great value for you listeners out there. All right, Max, thank you very much.
Thank you so much for having me on Industrial Talk, Scott. Always a pleasure. So hopefully more soon.
All right, listeners, we're going to wrap it up on the other side. Again, we're going to provide all the contact information. Plus, we're going to be able to give you the link to download this particular document. Big time. It's important. All right, so stay tuned. We will be right back.
You're listening to the Industrial Talk Podcast Network.
All right, once again, thank you very much for Max joining on Industrial Talk. Once again, this is a series, so make a note of it. Put it down on a piece of paper. Put it someplace, because we're going to continue to build on this very important topic, and that is, of course, what are the strategies around maintenance? What are the strategies around asset management? What are the strategies that you can deploy to give your business greater resilience going forward? It's got to happen. I mean, it's got to happen. And here is a methodology that even me, can understand. And that says a lot. All right, we've got to be about education. That's what this is all about. Industrial education, because you need to be constantly filling that brain with solutions. So be bold, be brave, dare greatly. We're going to have another great conversation. Hang out with Max, man. You're gonna like it. Reach out. All right, we're going to have another great conversation right around the corner, so stay tuned.